Om Shri Sai Ram. Dear brothers and sisters, in the series, we devotees are learning about the Sathya Sai avatar. What is his true nature or identity? Part 1 covered an introduction. Part 2, we learned that the Sathya Sai avatar is Sai Shivam when he manifested the Lingeshwara, and this was done when he produced by the wave of his hand a photograph of the Lingeshwara, and it was explained in this video what each aspect meant or conveyed about his avatar. In this part 3, Sathya Sai avatar has declared, I am Shiva Shakti Swarupam. And this was done when he himself healed himself of paralysis on Saturday, July 1963, on the occasion of Guru Purnima. What is the source of this information? We are using the words of Kasturi in Art to Art, October 2010, and also the content that was published in Sri Sathya Sai Dig Vijayam Part 1. July 1963 was one of the saddest years of the Sathya Sai devotees. On 29 June 1963, 8 days before Guru Purnima 1963, Swami suffered a severe attack of paralysis and 3 major heart attacks. He was in bed for 8 days. From the morning of Saturday, the 29th of June to the evening of 6th of July. It was around 6:30 a.m. on the 29th of June that Swami complained of a reeling sensation and he fell unconscious. His left limbs became taut and rigid. The paralysis had struck. He had taken upon himself the illness that would have been fateful to his devotee, whose name he did not mention. Kasturi, the late Kasturi, has recorded, I quote, that night was the longest, the darkest and the most dreadful in the lives of us 15 devotees, mortals, in that room. The heart attack happened. We listened to the groans. We prayed to Baba to assuage the pain and assure us of the victory we sought. In this room there was sadness, and it spread gradually around Prashanti Nilayam. Residents of Prashanti, standing tiptoe under the window, heard the diagnosis and wept. Baba warned the devotees with him not to frighten the other devotees with their fear. Deal gently with them, he said. Talk sweetly to them. He seemed to say, give them vibhuti. Ask them to leave for home and come some other time. Dr. B. Krishnamurti said that Baba was in coma and showed symptoms of apoplexy. A doctor was brought in the late hours of the night from Bangalore, but Swami refused any kind of medication and nursing. He had whirled the sickness. Wednesday dawned, dark and dismal. About 9 a.m., Baba, who was extremely exhausted, showed signs of sinking. He struggled for breath. Hiccups tormented him. The parents could not contain their sorrow, and brothers and sisters were wailing and in grief. Despite the fact their fate was rooted in Baba's divinity, they tottered and wept aloud like panic-stricken babies. These were the words of the late Professor Kasturi. Wednesday about 7 p.m., Swami gestured, "All of you should sleep around here this night." His words foretold him a crisis. Will there be a heart attack this night? Someone dared to ask. Swami said, "Yes." Kasturi has recorded that night was the longest, the darkest, and the most dreadful in the lives of those 15 mortals. Thursday, 6th of July, Swami was relieved of much of the pain, and he said, "Arrange now for all the devotees to get darshan. They are broken by despair." Those around him asked Swami, they pleaded to Swami that the darshan be granted 2 days later on Guru Purnima, when he will recover more. Baba asked Kasturi to announce at the prayer hall that darshan would be granted to all on Guru Purnima. He insisted that the assembled devotees be given an accurate description of his physical condition to save them from the sudden shock at his sorry state. That night, Baba conveyed another bit of good news. The clot in the brain had dissipated, dissolved. On the 8th day after the illness, that is 6th of July, being the auspicious Guru Purnima, Swami was carried down the winding 18 circular stairways from his upstairs residence, because he insisted on giving darshan to the thousands of devotees who had come on this festival, being Guru Purnima. He was placed on a silver chair in the prayer hall, and his hands and legs were adjusted in proper position. The prayer hall was packed as never before. Actually, many people, on knowing or hearing of his illness, had also come. As soon he was seated, he communicated the following message, which was interpreted and announced to the 5,000 stricken people. I quote his message. "This is not Swami's illness. This is an illness which Swami has taken on in order to save someone. Swami has no illness, nor will he get ill at any time. You must all be happy. That alone will make Swami happy. If you grieve, Swami will not be happy. Your joy is Swami's joy. Then Swami signaled to Kasturi to speak. After his short speech was over, Baba wanted the mic to be held before him. He asked through the mic. The words were in Telugu translated, "Do you hear me?" And this was mentioned a number of times. But though he asked again and again, the voice was so indistinct that no one could make out what it meant. He then signaled for water, and when it was brought, Swami sprinkled a little with his shaking right hand on the stricken left hand and on his left leg. He stroked his left hand with the right hand. Immediately he used both hands to stroke his left leg. That touch was enough to heal our Lord Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba of this illness, paralysis. To the amazement of all, Major Banu writes, I quote, "The doctor of doctors healed himself in a moment, leaving me aghast with wonder." Immediately Swami started to speak. Swami stood up and delivered his Guru Purnama discourse as if nothing out of the ordinary had transpired in the most traumatic 8 days. It was the normal voice of Swami. Neither his movement nor his voice, his gait had suffered any change due to the illness he had assumed. He announced to the large gathering of his devotees the secret of his incarnation. And brothers and sisters, this is the purpose of this YouTube presentation to all of us. What is his nature, true nature, his identity? Let me quote excerpts from his discourse. Then we'll understand his nature, true nature, his identity as the Sathya Sai avatar. Quote, "For those who have no refuge, God is their only refuge. That is exactly the reason why I had to take on the illness that one helpless devotee had to get. He had to suffer this illness as well as the 4 heart attacks that accompanied it, and he would not have survived it according to my dharma of protection of devotees. The suffering that you saw was too much for this particular devotee, and so I had to save him by myself going through it. Even in the previous body at Shirdi, I had this responsibility of saving my bhaktas. This is my Leela, my nature. It is part of the task for which I have come. That is the protection of my disciples." Even in Shirdi, Dada Sahib, Nandaram, Balwant were all saved by this means. Then we hear the divine disclosure made on that very auspicious day, 6th of July, Guru Purnima. Then raising the voice a little, Swami said, I quote again, I have been keeping back from you all these years one secret about me. The time has come when I can reveal it to you, for this is a sacred day. And we know it is a sacred day of Guru Purnima. I decided to disclose my identity, my mission, and my advent. These are the words of Swami. He said, I am Shiva Shakti, he declared, born in the Gotra lineage of sage Bharadwaja, according to a boon won by that sage from Shiva and Shakti. This Bharadwaja was a sage, great sage, who studied the Vedas for full 100 years. He got 2 extensions of a century each. Even then, the Vedas could not be completed. So he asked Indra, God Indra, again for another 100 years. Indra said, quote, give up the attempt to exhaust the Vedas. Do a yajna, a ritual sacrifice, instead, which I shall teach you, that will give you the fruit of Vedic study, full and complete. Bharadwaja, sage Bharadwaja, decided on performing the yajna. The sage wanted that Shakti must preside and bless the yaga. So he went to Mount Kailasha, but the time was not opportune for presenting this petition. Shiva and Shakti were engaged in a competitive dance, trying to find out who could dance longer. 8 days passed thus before Shakti noticed Bharadwaja standing in the cold. She just cast a smile at him and danced along as before. The sage mistook the smile as a cynical refusal to notice him. So he turned his back on Kailasha and started to descend. To his dismay, he found his left leg, hand and eye put out of action by a stroke. Shiva saw him fall. He came up to him and consoled him. Bharadwaja was told that Shakti had indeed blessed him and his yaga. Then Shiva revived him and cured him. Sprinkled water. Both Shiva and Shakti granted the Rishi boons. They said they would both attend the yaga. After the yaga was over, Shiva and Shakti were so happy and pleased that they conferred even more boons on the sage Bharadwaja. Shiva said that they would take human form and be born in the Bharadwaja Gotra or lineage 3 times. Firstly, as Shiva alone as Sathya Sai Baba. Secondly, he will be born as Shiva and Shakti together at Puttapati as Sathya Sai Avadar. And thirdly, as Shakti alone as Prema Sai. Then Shiva remembered the illness Bharadwaja suffered at Kailasha on the 8th day whilst waiting in the cold. He gave another assurance, quote, as amends for the neglect which Shakti showed you at Kailasha for 8 days, this Shakti will suffer the stroke for 8 days when we both take birth as Sathya Sai, and on the 8th day I shall relieve her from all signs of the disease by sprinkling water, just as I did at Kailasha to heal your illness. It was this assurance that you witnessed today, just now. Now, this had to happen. This stroke and the healing. So Baba is telling us now when he spoke on the occasion of Guru Purnima, he's saying, it was this assurance that you witnessed today, just now. This had to happen, this stroke and the healing. The assurance given in the Treta Yuga had to be honored. All these were accomplished by this one incident. Let me tell you one more thing. Nothing can impede or halt the words of this avatar. When I was upstairs all those 8 days, some people foolishly went about saying it is all over for Sai Baba. The splendor of this avatar will go on increasing day by day. Have patience, have faith. Another important reason for this incarnation, for Mother Nature, the feminine aspect of the Godhead, is currently totally out of balance due to man's misuse and abusement of the environment. Sai has incarnated in a masculine body, and has stated that one of the main reasons he has come at this time is to restore the terrible imbalance in nature. So this was another reason that was quoted in the text for this incident, for this illness that Baba had to undergo over eight days. So brothers and sisters, this is evidence, an announcement by him himself that Swami, the Sathya Sai avatar, is Shiva Shakti. Jai Bolo Bhagwan Shri Sathya Sai Baba Ji ki Jai. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. In the next presentation, you will learn that Swami has also declared that he is an incarnation of Shirdi Sai Baba. Jai Saram, Jai Saram, Jai Saram.